You want it? We have it. The hottest mortgage and real estate strategy broadcast in the nation. A Smarter Way Home with your host, Danielle Boote and Victor Bals. 50 years combined experience, ranked in the top 1% in the nation for home loan originations 2020. Promise to expand your knowledge, utilizing creative mortgage financing and home buying strategies. Build a bridge for a better quality of life. Get your brain cells firing for a smarter way home. And welcome to another episode of A Smarter Way Home. Modern mortgage and real estate strategies in this, let's call this a crazy seller's market. But before we get into that, I want to introduce my co-host. Well, first of all, I'm Victor Bals, and my co-host, the wonderful loan officer extraordinaire, Mrs. Danielle Boote.
How are you today, Victor?
I am pretty good, and spring is right around the corner.
The sun is shining in Michigan, even though it's still a little chilly. It feels good.
It's still a little chilly, but boy, do we have a hot market out there. And
today,
we're going to talk about a seller's market. It is absolutely crazy over there. But before we get into that, let's get our consumers into about understanding the current climate or the landscape out there on the market. And I took a couple notes here today. And the housing inventory continues to tighten in Livingston County here and really all over the country with no end in sight. And last week we talked about the average first-time home buyer is 33 years old. And we have about 5.1 million of this age group entering the home buying market each year in this country. However, the building industry is only on track to complete maybe a little bit over 1 million single-family homes in this country. So that's going to leave us at about 4 million homes short. Danielle, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, we have heard Barry Habib speak. He was on our podcast a couple months ago, and I have heard him speak professionally several times in about the last 4 years, and Barry's been talking about this. Everybody thinks that this market is looking like 2005 and 2006 did, prior to the crash in the market in 2008. What's very different about this, and I see this multi-industry wide, no one is paying attention to the demographics in this country. And we've talked about before that the millennials are bigger than the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. They're 45 million strong. I believe they're between the ages right now of 24 and 39. Mm-hmm. Okay. We are in the middle of a 9-year cycle. Well, there will be more and more young adults, these millennials, hitting the age of 31 to 33. And if that's the average age of the first-time home buyer, some, of course, are younger. Some are a little bit older. That's just the average, the median average. They're a force to be reckoned with. And regardless of what is going on in the world, in the local economies, in the national economies, they are starting families, starting households, and looking for a place to live. If we haven't seen this growth in our country since the end of World War II, when the baby boom started, okay, and then the late 1940s. So these are buyers that don't have a house to sell in many cases, okay? There are millennials that are moving into their second home already because they've done so well in the market in the last 5 to 7 years. They're not going away, and these are people that were born in the United States.
Well, you brought up a point there. You talked about the 2005, 2006, when the mortgage market basically crashed. At that point, we were in an extreme buyer's market, okay? And in that buyer's market, there was too many homes and not enough buyers. And it was very commonplace for a potential buyer to put in an offer, Mr. Seller, I'll buy your home, contingent on me selling my home. Oh, right. And by the way, I want you to pay some of my closing costs, also known as seller concessions. And that was commonplace.
Right. I also remember in the early 2000s that a buyer could buy a new construction home cheaper than they could an existing home.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So the buyers were willing to wait and willing to build a house if it took 6 or 9 months, because guess what? They got a brand new house with a brand new roof and brand new appliances, sometimes cheaper than what they could buy an existing home for.
Right. So, okay. So we talked extreme buyer's market. So now we're in extreme seller's market, and strategies are going to change. And today we're going to go over a couple of those strategies.
And we've seen that going on for about a year now, or longer, year and a half, that all of a sudden, even us as seasoned lenders go, wow, the realtor came up with an interesting concept there. And, both of my daughters sold homes last year and purchased new homes last year. They're both millennials on their second home. And one of the things that my daughter did in Oakland County that was very, very interesting was she wrote an offer on a home, giving the seller 60 days to go find their new home.
So she's listing a home contingent upon...
Nope. She wrote an offer on a new purchase.
On a new purchase.
Subject to the seller finding their home in 60 days. Okay. Which is the concept that you and I have talked about. So it was something that you and I started talking about at the office a couple of weeks ago. And I said, oh yeah, my daughter did that. And the situation with that particular seller is they knew they needed to move. They had a family, several kids in the house, right? So a big dynamic to move. And they kept looking for homes. They could not buy a home until they sold their home.
Right.
And then they kept trying to write offers and getting beat out, right? Okay. But
So they were writing offers contingent on them selling their home, which is a weaker offer in today's climate.
And they got beat out on every home because somebody else wrote without contingency on selling a home.
So your daughter said, Mr. Seller, I will buy your home, basically contingent on you finding a home. So that seller could now go buy that, put an offer on a home contingent on them closing on their home, which is a much stronger, or considered as a non-contingent offer. Almost.
As a buyer, it was a little stressful because we kept waiting, right? We were like, did they find a house yet? Did they find a house yet? I mean, I think it took them close to 30 days after we went pending on their home to find a house and finally get in contract. Okay. And timing was important because I think we went into contract on their house in April. So that was a part of the season where the inventory was a little bit low still. But my daughter and her husband were patient. They loved the house. And they knew that they would figure out an angle, right, to make this work for the seller. As long as the seller was honest and doing their due diligence and pounding the pavement to try to find a house, eventually they're going to find a house. And they did. Wow. It all worked out. They closed. And then they even gave the seller occupancy appropriately. But as a buyer, they were reasonable and said, we understand this market. As long as all parties are being honest up front, right? They worked together to create a win-win situation. And in the meantime, my daughter had a house to sell. So she just paused listing that for a little bit until she was in contract. And literally both of her homes closed 3 days apart. Again, is there stress in it? Sure. Is there an anxiety in buying and selling a house? Absolutely.
On any one of them.
So, but in this situation, when my daughter was getting beat out, I mean, she was writing offers every weekend for over a month.
Yeah.
Until she must have written 15 plus offers.
Well,
in 4 to 6 weeks, and then finally got one accepted. And so she was as a buyer, she was anxious to get in contract, anxious to know, hey, I'm going to get this house. I don't care if it takes 60 or 90 days.
So your daughter, basically on the first 15 offers she wrote, was kicked to the curb like many other first-time home buyers, even second-time home buyers, because of just I almost want to say, panic buying because there's a lack of inventory.
Yeah.
So your daughter, in essence, said, you know what, Mr. Seller, I'm willing to wait in line. I love your home. I'll buy your home, basically contingent on you finding a home. And that strategy worked out very good for her.
Right.
That's excellent. Let's talk about first-time home buyer mentality versus second home buyer mentality. So first-time home buyers buy for mainly about 4 reasons. They don't want to rent. They want pride of home ownership. They want to create long-term wealth and home appreciation and tax benefits that are associated with home ownership and real estate. Also, they want maybe to get married or want a place to call home, or they want to get out of mom and dad's basement.
Or they have a dog. Young adults are buying houses because they have dogs,
Right.
and they want a yard.
Right, but what we have here is a bunch of wants, And when we look at like second-time or current homeowners looking to buy a home, they tend to buy for other reasons. They need to upsize. They need to downsize. Some have the need to relocate for job or family. They could be going through maybe a divorce or separation situation, death of a family member, or another type of life-changing event that could drive their needs to purchase a home. So what drives the motivations of a second-time buyer is somewhat the case of the needs, unlike the wants of a first-time home buyer. So I see a different mentality when I'm talking to my customers. Do you see the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that you and I have chatted about, Vic, is because we hear people calling us going, okay, I need to buy a house. I want to downsize. I want to sell my home that I've been in. I have a gentleman right now that has been in his house for 48 years. Okay. And he is downsizing. And he's had a hard time finding a condo in Brighton. Okay. Well, his situation, like many other potential sellers, is that they own their homes free and clear. They really could be, in many cases, a cash buyer or only need a very small mortgage.
Okay.
But they've got a life built in this house. They've got stuff to go through. A lot of people, I'm not saying they're hoarders or anything of that nature, but you lived in a house for 30, 40 years. It's going to take you a little while to get yourself together, right? Before you can list that house.
Even when you declutter, you say, man, I still got a lot of stuff.
I got a lot of stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of garage sales, estate sales, but you cannot buy in some cases, right? Or you could buy. So the thing that we have to look at with these particular clients is, what is your objective? What are the angles that we can take and say, okay, can you buy a house? Can you buy the new condo before you sell your house? Or do you have to sell? Or is there another way to tap the equity in your free and clear home? Some of this year's sellers are older population that might be retired, and they find this market very intimidating, right? Yeah. They don't want to put their house on the market and be homeless.
Well, let's just stop there for a second, because I'm getting the same type of calls, and there's like almost a psychological feel that these sellers are fearful of selling their home and not being able, or being left homeless if they can't find a home, and they don't even want to consider renting. And that's a whole nother subject, because you can't find a rental out there.
Right. So now I'm thinking of several clients right now. I have a lady who did sell her house, and I think she moved in with family looking for the condo. Okay. That's one type of scenario. I do have another client recently who sold her house in Brighton, did go to an apartment, right? Because she knew that she didn't want to deal with the stress, but she was a younger individual. So she was like, you know what? This made the most sense for me. I get my house sold, cash out, the money's in the bank. She's prepared. And then guess what? She looked all winter, found the perfect condo. We got her closed, and she's happy. Yep. But for her, that eliminated some stress making a double move. It was less stressful for her to say, I'm going to move twice, than it was for her to try to deal with all of this. And I think it's important for people to realize that there can be options. We have to talk, because that seller's probably going to be a buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're stressed about where they're going to go and where they're going to buy, even if they think they could be a cash buyer. I have a lot of realtors that will refer me clients that could in essence be a cash buyer, but they don't know what they need to know to even make the decision to list their house, because it's the deer in the headlights.
Right.
Like, oh my God, I'm going to put my house on the market and it's going to be sold in 3 to 5 days. And then I'm going to be homeless.
Yeah.
You know, and there's another thing that has become very normal in this market is buyers giving sellers extended occupancy up to 30 days after, up to 60 days after closing, which 2 years ago, we would see 30 days, but you didn't see 60.
Well,
now the norm is the buyer says to the seller, I will give you 60 days occupancy to buffer everything that needs to happen and could go wrong, honestly, to say, look, let's make this work. I want your house. The sellers absolutely are in the driver's seat, and it takes a very experienced agent to pull this all together. I actually heard a story, not of my client, but of a recent situation where an agent listed a home. Of course, it sold quickly. And now the seller is a single mother with a child that has some needs and a dog, and now she has no place to go. So on the flip side, that is not a good situation.
Yeah. Don't put that on your resume. You know?
No, absolutely not, because now that poor woman is extremely stressed and she cannot find a home that meets her needs, and now she feels like she's on this ticking time bomb situation with where's she going to live.
Well, you know, and this is as we look at these strategies, so you discussed, could we possibly buy first and then sell to alleviate stress? And that's really a well-experienced, knowledgeable loan officer digging into the financials and digging into everything about that potential seller so that we know that we can pull that strategy off.
And more people can qualify with 2 houses
than they realize.
And here's why. In this market, buyers are not buying on 2 incomes.
Right.
Okay. We can qualify a borrower up to 30 to 31% of their gross income. Okay. If you have a 2-income household, most buyers are not spending that much. They're not spending 30% of their income. Maybe first-time home buyers might spend a little bit more, but I think an average second-time home buyer might be spending only 20% of their income. They're living well below their means, and a lot of people don't have much debt. They have a car payment and a little credit card. You know, yes, some people still have student loans and things of that nature, but many, many people are living under their means. I met with somebody last night that was shocked when I told them you probably can buy before you sell. But here's the strategic part, because everybody goes, I don't want 2 house payments. Well, nobody does. If you get your house, if you find a house, get under contract, start your mortgage, and get your inspections cleared, okay? Those are the first couple of hurdles.
Right.
That's the time that you list your house for sale.
Once you're through inspection.
Yes,
I'm moving forward.
So and I did this with both of my daughters and their husbands, where they listed their house right after they went into contract. They had listing photos ready. They had all the paperwork done. The realtor just had to plug in the live date. Okay. Their house
once home inspection passed.
Correct.
Click the button.
Their house is sold in under a week, and they closed. One daughter closed 3 days apart, and the other one closed 2 weeks apart. They never ever made a second house payment, or a duplicate house payment on 2 houses. So it was a very tight, controlled situation. And again, having the right lending strategy and having the right realtor on your behalf, working with your lender and explaining, this is what we're going to need. This is what we're going to try to do. Boy, we can hit a home run time after time after time with this particular strategy. And the other thing that I talk to my clients about is, particularly, for instance, somebody that's retired, right? This is going to be a little bit scary to pull down a chunk of cash, buy your next home. And the gentleman that I mentioned earlier, I told him, talk to your CPA and talk to your financial advisor. Well, here's the funny thing. He came back to me last week and said, my financial advisor said I need a mortgage. He would rather me have a mortgage, not take all of the assets from his home that is free and clear, and invest that, right? The man is healthy. He could live 25 more years in his retirement years. And are you better off thinking about that strategy? Now, that's not for us to advise a client on, but I'm going to advise my client, go talk to your financial advisor.
Absolutely.
Get counsel on making the best decision for you so that, shoot, we've got a lot of people living to be 90, 100 plus. I mean, those are things that 30 or 40 years ago when they were in the working world, they did not think about when it came to how long you were going to really be retired. Right now, people are going to live longer in retirement than they potentially were in their working years.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother conversation.
You know, you brought up a couple points there. We talk about the 2 house payments. Man, I don't want to buy, and then sell my home after. I don't want to face 2 payments. But you talked about, we can use both incomes there. And remember, people, these are the strategies that sometimes have to be used for you to compete. And if you were to have a second house payment, it would most likely be temporary, maybe 1, maybe 2 payments. So consider this a Band-Aid until we can put the stitches in long term. But that may be the winning strategy you need to discuss with your lender.
Right. Well, let's talk about how mortgage payments work.
Oh, yeah,
okay?
Explain
because
that.
This is elementary in our world, but most people don't realize it. When you purchase a home, your mortgage payment does not start typically for 30 to 45 days later. So as an example, anyone closing in March on a new home will not have a house payment until May 1st. Mm-hmm. If you close in April, it is June 1st. It's, for instance, to compare, when you buy a car, your car payment starts 30 days exactly after the date that you purchase the car. But the mortgage is structured as such, and it's not like't getting any free days. A little bit of interest is collected at closing to make that whole process work. But mortgage payments are standardized on the first of the month. We need time to set it up in servicing, all of that good stuff. So if you bought a house in March and closed a house in April, you don't have a house payment till May 1st.
June 1st.
June, yeah.
And it's kind of funny. And if you're going to even consider this type of strategy for the house you're going to buy, try to have the closing in the middle or in the beginning of a month. Let's say the 3rd, March 3rd, 4th, 5th. You go almost 60 days without a payment due. And that gives you plenty of time in this market environment to flip or get rid of your current house.
Yeah. So that's one of the strategies where you go, well, the way the payments are laid out, it's really you're not going to bump into one another.
Absolutely. Let's talk about hidden inventory. I believe we have a lot of hidden inventory out there. We spoke earlier about potential sellers like your gentleman, and I have 4, 5, 6 buyers out there that own homes, and they are fearful of listing and selling their home that I won't be able to find one. I'm going to be homeless.
Right, because if you're moving up, whether you're moving, for instance, if you're downsizing and you're looking for a smaller home or a condo, you have a particular need. If you're upsizing, you're also looking for something particular, and you're probably not going to settle. Like if we have a buyer that wants 2 to 5 acres, well, that limits the pool of what they're looking at, even in our county, because they have a specific idea of what they're looking for.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife just a few days ago, and we were talking about this, let's list the home contingent on us finding a home. She goes, well, that's crazy. She goes, there's nowhere to go. And I said, well, example, let's say you wanted to move across to, just 3 blocks away. Mm-hmm. What if there was another couple like us sitting there going, boy, I would love to move, but I'm fearful of finding a home. And I said, well, if we raised our hand and says, you know what? We would sell contingent on financing. And if Susie 2 blocks away was interested in selling and raising her hand and say, I'd be interested in selling, and Jamie across town raised their hand and said, I would love to sell contingent on finding one, my wife and I would see 2 more potential listings out there that could meet our needs.
Well, and this just popped in my head, and I don't think Zillow does this anymore. And not that any of us are just a huge fan of Zillow's techniques, but Zillow used to do, what was it called?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to look at Monica. She's not going to say anything, even though she's
We're
got
gonna
her
blame it on
headphones
Monica.
No,
Put her deer in the headlights headshot on that YouTube video.
It was called Make Me Move.
Uh-huh.
It was a function in Zillow.
Really?
Now, I don't think they do it now. I'll go
Okay,
look when we get back to the office. But a homeowner could say, hey, if you give me X amount of dollars, I'll move.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah.
It's gone now, but they only did it for like maybe 2 years.
Did they? Yeah, but isn't
What is
that
that,
interesting?
like eBay for houses?
Yeah, because so someone could see that, hey, if you gave me this for my home, I would sell.
Right.
Which is a little bit, it's like turning on your porch light saying, I'm kind of interested, and here's how we're going to know.
I don't know. Just from the gate there, I see that strategy kind of blown up because nowadays these real estate transactions get so complex. You really need a professional real estate agent to do this. And get these under contract.
You do. But, one of the things, and when you talk about hidden inventory, and one of the things that you and I chatted about is because of the stress that sellers and potential buyers are under with this crazy market, we are seeing situations where sellers find a buyer without ever putting it on the market, right?
Uh-huh.
You may work with somebody that says, oh, my Aunt Sally's selling her house in Hamburg.
Uh-huh.
And your coworker goes, well, I'm looking for a house in Hamburg. How can we put that together? And, then all of a sudden we get a purchase agreement.
That is just a disaster.
Well, sometimes, yes. I mean, I would always prefer to have a realtor put the whole transaction together, but they're doing this because Aunt Sally doesn't want the stress of what could happen if she lists. And, it's crazy what we're seeing. It really is.
God, I can't. Yeah, I've got a couple for sale by owners in my queue right now, and they're a little bit more difficult. Buyers and sellers, sure, their intent is good, but understanding we need an addendum, we need this. Yes. Oh, you got a problem with title where it's not recorded right, and they don't know where to go. So we help them out all the time there. So, okay, let's talk about the economic impact that a typical home sale has here in Livingston County. And I pulled this data from the National Association of Realtors, and a typical home sale in this county, effective in 2020, each sale actually creates $72,200 more in, I guess, indirect money to the community. And this is real estate commissions, title companies, moving companies, cardboard box companies, well and septic people, appliances, furniture, and all that. It creates a lot of economic revenue. Do you see this extreme sellers market having an impact on our local economy at all?
Well, it certainly could. If we get to, we have seen sales slow down in January and February a bit, year over year from where we were a year ago. I think, according to Livingston County data, we had 6% less listings. Now, pretty much everything that's listed is getting sold, but if real estate stalls, it will impact the local economy.
Absolutely.
Home Depot, Lowe's will feel it. Local contractors will feel it.
I think there was maybe about 250 sales last month in February, March. But God, I remember the days when, after the real estate crash in the buyer's market, there was 1,200 listings.
Right, and that was too many. Right, so that drove prices down.
Right, and today we only have, there's maybe 150 listings out there, which
I think ultimately it's going to be a good year.
Yeah,
I think that there are a lot of people waiting, and the one thing I will tell buyers and sellers, Michigan real estate is always seasonal, okay? It typically is seasonal. Now, honestly, and I've been in the business, I hate to say 32 years, this is the most typical market I think we've seen in about 15 years, right? Where it slows down in the winter. Who wants to list their house in January and February? Nobody does. Right. Unless you have to move. Somebody's getting transferred, an estate sale or something of that nature. People are waiting. And from what I'm hearing from the realtors, there are a lot of sellers getting ready to list.
Absolutely.
And time change is also a big deal, which is this weekend. Yay. Right? We'll have more daylight hours.
I'll be in bed before it gets dark.
Oh, God. But that is what is going to usher the spring market into play. And this is typical. So I think that a lot of buyers freak out because they're like, there's no houses on the market. Well, it's January in Michigan. You know, no one wants to list their house when there's a foot of snow outside and anybody that comes in is going to pull the salt in.
Well, let's talk about the first-time home buyers, or just all the home buyers in general out there. I mean, we've beaten through these last few months, December, January, February, and we're seeing multiple offers. We're seeing up to, 30, 40, 50 showings. We have real estate agents hiring security, at these things here. So how does a home buyer who has been beat out, kicked to the curb, they're hurt, how do they compete? What advice can you give these home owners that are these home buyers or potential home buyers that almost feel like they want to throw in the towel and wait?
Well, okay, first of all, let's talk about who is an active home buyer, okay? An active home buyer is somebody that is looking, is pre-approved, and knows what they can afford and is ready to pull the trigger.
And pull the trigger quickly.
Part of what we're experiencing is there are, what do we call them, looky-loo buyers?
Yep.
There are buyers out there that do not have their pre-approvals, but they're being shown homes anyways.
Wait,
and
stop.
including clients that have a house already. So you could have a very established buyer, good credit, income, they're already homeowners, right? You know it's a slam dunk, but they don't know what their options are. And they're out being shown houses because the realtor knows they're good for it.
Yeah.
Okay. But these clients haven't done their due diligence to say, okay, what am I doing? Like I have a client right now in this situation. They've been looking at houses for over a month. They're looking for a specific property. It's a couple that the husband's already sold his house. The wife has got a house to sell, but they can buy without selling, and they know it. But until right now, they haven't really gotten serious. So if a realtor is out there showing homes to a buyer that is not really serious, doesn't have a solid pre-approval, doesn't have option A, B, and C, they're not really a serious buyer. So the sellers, for instance, I mean, if a seller has 20 showings on a home, what percentage of those are serious, ready to go buyers?
Right.
It's not 100%.
Right.
It is not 100%. And then here's what the buyers see. The buyers go, well, there's 25 people looking at this house this weekend. They're calling for highest and best by Monday at 5 p.m. Okay. And those buyers go, well, I'm not jumping into that mess. Yeah. Not realizing that 25 of those buyers are not ready to go. I mean, my guesstimation is that less than 50% of buyers in the market, even if they're a legit buyer that can qualify, they're not ready. And do you know how I know? Because you and I get calls 7 days a week. And we inevitably get a call at 3:00 on Sunday afternoon from a buyer or a realtor going, I need a favor. Right?
Yeah.
I've got a buyer who now just fell in love with a house and it's highest and best. We have to have our offer by 5:00. You know, I'm sorry. Hopefully, this could be a good thing with gas prices being so high.
Yeah.
The realtors are quaking in their boots with gas prices this high. Why? Because they are taking buyers out, driving them around 3 or 4 days a week in some cases. And, to try to find a house, right? That's their job.
Oh, yeah.
But are you going to be wasting your gas taking buyers that I don't care how good they are, I don't care what their income is, credit, or how much money they have in the bank. If they haven't talked to a lender, they're not serious, they're not ready, and they're not a legit buyer. Right. And do you remember, we have been in markets, and maybe this is something that the sellers need to do. We have been in markets where the seller would not allow a buyer into the house until they proved, hey, here's a legit pre-approval letter.
Yep.
That's common in higher priced markets, right?
Absolutely.
So you go, look, as a seller, you look at that and go, okay, there's a lot of falsehoods out there in the market.
Absolutely.
It's impacting sellers, it's impacting buyers, and it's like, you know what, folks, do not go looking at houses until you're ready to go.
Let's get it real.
We also get calls after open houses, don't we? I'll get a text from an agent going, hey, Danielle, I just gave your number to a lady named Sally. She walked into my open house and is interested in the house. Guess what? How many times do you not hear from that individual?
Right.
Or you do 5 days later. Well, the house is already sold, but that person was looking. You're counting them as an active, interested buyer, and they're just not the real
Right.
deal.
Let's go back to your comment about that well-to-do buyer, that buyer that has a home to sell, but hey, I'm good for it. I've got a financial planner. Hey, I could put 20% down. Don't worry, I'm good for it, right? And they're looking for that specific house. When they do find that specific house and find out that there's going to be multiple offers, they make that call. Oh, I got to get pre-approved, and I called my bank, and I can't get a hold of them.
Right.
And they need to be prepared, get that pre-approval, and understand the strategies just like anybody else, so they can get in line and get into the bidding war like most likely is going to be on almost every listing I've seen. I haven't seen one listing go in there with just one particular offer recently.
No. Livingston County's data came out just the other day that homes are selling for about 104% of list price.
Wow.
Which means obviously some are going higher than that, but 104% of list price.
Well, and let's see, what are we seeing our buyers actually paying for more than the norm, than a typical market? What are some of the cost and fees, and how are some of these offers getting structured to win?
Well, one of the things that we saw last year, and particularly in this market, was buyers offering to pay the seller's closing cost.
The seller's closing cost.
So when a seller lists a home, they are typically responsible for real estate commission on both sides of the transaction. They will pay state and county transfer tax fees, and they will pay for an owner's title policy.
That could add up to some serious extra money.
Probably about 8% of the list price.
So $200,000, that's 16 extra $1,000.
Exactly. So we have seen buyers write an offer because they're worried about over offering on the house, and they're worried about, of course, where that appraisal is going to come in at. We have seen buyers write strong offers, but instead of offering a crazy amount over asking, they say, hey, we're going to offer you this, but we're going to then pay for your costs, or some of the cost. And the realtors have gotten real creative, and they now know how to write an addendum to protect both buyer and seller and go, okay, the buyer's going to pay the seller's closing cost.
Okay, so on a typical, let's just say $200,000 sale on a 5% down conventional, that's $10,000 for down payment, a year of taxes, year of insurance, and closing costs. That's about $20,000 there. Plus this potential extra $16,000 for seller costs. They could be on the hook there for $36,000.
They could be.
So what do these first time or these home buyers do with those type of offers? Where do they come up with the money? Where's some of these strategies are coming up with this money to compete?
Well, if you're a first-time home buyer, first of all, personal savings is going to be the big first question. What do you have in your checking account, savings account? What do you feel comfortable spending? Okay. You also can take a loan from your 401k or a hardship withdrawal to purchase a residence. That is a federal guideline where you can take money out of your 401k with no penalty. Now, again, that's a big decision. So I always
But this is a life-changing event.
It is.
401ks are there for life-changing event or retirement.
Correct.
Whichever comes first.
Correct. So I'm never going to recommend a buyer take 20% down out of their 401k. I would say take absolutely the minimum that you need. And another option is, of course, a gift from a family member.
The fathers, the brothers, the in-laws, an eligible gift source.
Yes. Yeah. So sometimes it's a small amount, $5,000, $10,000. I have somebody right now that's getting a gift in excess of $200,000 for a down payment on the first house. Now that is highly unusual and very, very unique. But, I'll tell everybody, look, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, because if they understand market conditions and want you to help you be competitive, sometimes those are the things that need to be done to make the situation work.
Well, and we've also seen the strategy being utilized for these first-time home buyers or just home buyers in general that maybe don't have a heavy down payment or enough funds to pay some of the stuff, where they're going to their parents or a gift source and say, look, and we've seen it where the the parents would actually come in and pay cash for the property and do something that's called delayed financing. Could you explain that strategy, Danielle?
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy, and we have seen that for a couple of years now. So Fannie Mae on a conventional loan has a guideline that states if you pay cash for a property, we will allow you to refinance to take cash out up to 80% of the purchase price and then give you a new mortgage. So I've seen that done a couple of different ways. First of all, I've seen the buyer purchase the house and just use mom and dad's cash. Okay. But I've also seen mom and dad buy the house and then they turn around and sell it to their child. So either of those strategies can work. There are some differences between the two. And typically when we have a pre-approved buyer that goes that route, I'm going to counsel them prior to making that decision so that we have all the ducks in the row and we can actually, for instance, literally the date of closing, we start the mortgage application, we close it in a couple weeks. So that it's not, there's not a big gap there between the one closing and the
Getting
other.
everybody on the same chessboard so we can figure out how to play the game.
Yes.
One of the other strategies for someone who wants to buy without selling, a lot of clients have home equity lines of credit on their current homes.
Yep.
And especially in a situation like your gentleman there, it would be almost perfect if he had a home equity a line of credit. If he was downsizing, he may have enough money to just utilize that home equity line of credit, go pay cash for the property,
right?
And then sell his current home.
Well, that is an excellent strategy, and sometimes it works and sometimes it does not.
Okay,
So here's an example.
Yep.
I have a client that is building a house, and they needed to come up with about $30,000 to enter into the build contract for their deposit. Well, that's going to take a year. They were able to get a line of credit, use that for their deposit. It allows them to stay in their home as long as possible, and then they'll list their home prior to their new construction home being done, try to time it as well as possible. Now, with my gentleman that is downsizing to a condo that has a free and clear home, interesting situation here. He did go to a bank to try to get approved for a home equity loan, and they told him no.
And why is that?
They told him no because he is retired and his main source of income is Social Security. Now, the man has considerable assets.
So the bank didn't know how to calculate income streams.
Or they won't. Maybe their guidelines do not allow them to look at somebody's assets to say, so in this situation, believe it or not, and the man was shocked, okay? He came in, I said, bring me all your stuff. So I'm able to look at his income, look at his assets, look at his whole portfolio and said, okay, here's what we need to do to get you the mortgage to buy the condo. So he is going to put 20% down on his condo. I've got retirement assets to create residual long-term income according to guidelines, and he's got Social Security. So this man has excellent credit, never paid a bill late in his life, money in the bank, money, equity in a property, and the bank told him no. And he was shocked.
So Danielle turned on the light at the end of the tunnel for this gentleman.
Yes. And you know what? This is the gentleman whose financial advisor said, you need to keep a mortgage.
Yeah. Okay.
So I told him, I said, don't make any decisions. He knows, he's going to move into the condo right away. And then he's got to clean out the other house and he's going to list it down the road. So I said, look, you can always put a chunk down on your mortgage and get the mortgage reamortized and still have a smaller mortgage, but then you'll be in your condo. Your financial advisor will help you see the light down that road and create a strategy for long-term financial stability. Because, and I tell people this all the time, being financially independent does not mean you have no debt.
Right.
It means you have truly financial independence is having liquidity of your assets that at any moment you could write a check and pay off all your debt. So if your debt is only a mortgage payment and you have enough money to pay it off, then you truly are financially independent. I have seen too many people over the years pay off their mortgage, try to retire, and then guess what happens? They have limited income, they didn't save enough during their lifetime, and now their house needs maintenance. Yep. And they can't afford a roof, and they can't afford a furnace and an air conditioner, all those big ticket items. at that, especially if
Oh,
they've
yeah.
lived in a house
Oh, yeah.
30 years. You go, oh, guess what? Now it's time to update all of that. And it's a considerable investment. That is not financial independence. If you have to use a credit card and you're retired to put a roof on your house, you can't afford that house. And then you have to have a serious conversation that, you know what, you need to sell it and you need to downsize and live somewhere else. But, my goal in life, and my financial advisor helped me with this. He said, Danielle, don't prepay the mortgages. Not when you're in your earning years. He goes, keep saving, grow your assets outside the mortgage. And when I will be financially independent is when I can write a check and pay off my debts. Then it doesn't matter if I lose my job. Doesn't matter if I break my arm and can't work, right? Or there's all kinds of things that we know happen in life. It's not a matter of if you have a stressful event in life, it's just a matter of when it's going to hit you, right?
Yeah.
And to be prepared. Keep the money on your side of the table. The mortgage interest rate is the cheapest money you're ever going to borrow. And I'm not saying to overborrow. We don't have risky mortgages out there. There's no interest onlys. There's no 80-20 mortgages. No balloons. Plan well, but your money will grow faster outside of your mortgage than it will be dumping it in the mortgage. But again, I'm all for paying your mortgage off early. I want everybody to really think about a financial strategy, because I don't care if you make your payments early on your mortgage. I guarantee you, if you get into financial trouble,
You're tapping your mortgage.
you're going to call the mortgage company and say, hey, I lost my job and I need 6 months off the mortgage. Other than the forbearance situation we've had the last 2 years because of COVID.
You're going to kill your credit.
You're going to kill your credit. You're going to have problems. Nobody's going to borrow you money.
Yeah.
Look at you. You could be retired with money in the bank and a free and clear property, and the bank's going to tell you, no, you don't qualify for a home equity loan. Those are the things to prepare for before you retire, before you're ready to make this huge life change.
Absolutely. You brought a couple points there. I know my old man always told me, Vic, it's very hard to get rich quick, but it's pretty easy to get wealthy slow.
Yeah.
That was one thing. And then you brought up the home equity lines. Let's not confuse a home equity line of credit with a credit card. You cannot utilize a credit card for any down payment or the closing costs on a mortgage. You can't borrow money to borrow money. But a home equity line of credit, it's your money. It's your equity.
It's secured.
It is secured. Mm-hmm. They are two individually different things, and they both have their own dynamics on that.
Mm-hmm. But again, these are, we're giving you like kind of some high level ideas to think about. We're going a little bit deep on them, but all of this discussion is very specific to our clients.
Yes.
And what their needs, wants, and desires are, and how we get them there, and making sound financial decisions.
Well, I've never seen, I guess, more of a pressing time where lenders and real estate agents have to come together even tighter.
Yeah.
It's not me, the lender, the client, and the realtor. No, it's all us as a team.
Absolutely.
Figuring out these strategies, because execution, precision, Plan A, Plan B, Plan C are going to give the highest probability of a winning solution.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of clients getting offers accepted. We're already in the last week. Pre-approvals have been increasing in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Every week we're getting busier and busier. And all of a sudden I'm starting to see buyers get offers accepted.
Right.
So I tell the buyers, get ready. Let's understand your numbers. Let's understand your options. And then let's get your running shoes on, and we'll get you to the finish line.
It was kind of interesting. I had gave a client a pre-approval, and I got a call by the listing agent, or actually the realtor asked me, could you reach out to the listing agent? So I not only reached out and made a phone call, I actually did a video of the pre-approval and the strength of the buyer, so they can introduce myself, and we got the winning offer. So that came in last night.
I love that, having fun with that technology.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So any other stuff you would like to bring up to our potential home buyers or home sellers? How do we prepare them for the spring? And don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Reach out to your seasoned professionals. First of all, if you're thinking about selling, get your pre-approval done first.
Yes.
Lay out all of your options so that we have the best strategy. And then that's when we pull in your professional realtor to say, okay, Here's our strategic plan. We have A, B, C. I would rather give someone multiple options, and then when they find the right house, they feel empowered and knowledgeable and educated to know what their options are. And you know what? If they just sit home waiting and wondering for this to all work out, no one's going to show, there is no knight in shining armor that's going to show up at your front door that is going to hand you a cash offer on your house with all the occupancy you need until you start.
I don't know, Danielle.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we should put a sign in the front yard. I'm thinking of selling and I don't know what to do. That's not good.
Yeah.
That is not good.
So, and also any potential home sellers out there, if you don't know where to begin and you've been contemplating and you don't even know of a realtor or a real estate agent, give us a call. We work with the best agents in the county and we know a lot of them around here. We can definitely put you with the right people if you're willing to roll up your sleeves out there and become a team member with the lender, the real estate agent, yourself, with your needs, wants, your desires. There is a way, and you can't hit them if you don't start swinging.
Right.
Period.
Right. I mean, and the agents are working hard right now.
Yes.
Even trying to determine a list price on a property is a week by week conversation. Because what sold 6 months ago, when we start the spring market, here's what's important to understand. An appraiser is going to look back 6 to 12 months for comps. Mm-hmm. In this market, 6 months or less is ideal. But we're coming off the slow season, which means the floodgates are about to open. And those appraisers are going to have to look and go, okay, wait a minute. What really are our comps? And literally keep an eye on things on a week-by-week basis. Yeah,
appraisers got to earn it now.
They do. The appraisers have to earn it. The listing agents are going to have to earn it.
Everybody's working harder.
But you also, the agents are also kind of going to project, right? They're going to say, okay, here's where things have been selling, but here's where they're going, and let's move it from there.
I had a conversation with an agent yesterday talking about, with this market just going crazy with the appreciation. Absolutely, when that appraiser goes to the house, meet that appraiser. Give them as much information as you can to justify whatever you can.
Yeah, have a list of all of your improvements recently. Know the age of the roof, the age of your water heater, furnace, things of that nature.
Absolutely. So,
and as a seller, here's another tip. If you're a seller in this market, make sure your house is ready to go. Why don't you get the furnace checked and cleaned? Yeah. Get it inspected properly before you list. Make sure everything works. It'll help keep the...
That's a great point, too. Any potential seller, if you're thinking of selling, get with an agent to come over, give you a current market analysis, but really a declutter type list there, too. What needs decluttered? Check this out. These realtors are really knowledgeable on what you need to do to best position yourself.
Correct.
It's just... it's a game, and I love it. And if you're going to get in the game, you better roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
And your loan professional and your realtor, they are your coaches. They're going to tell you the plays you need to be doing when you're on the field so you can get a touchdown. Period.
Exactly.
It doesn't get any tougher than this now.
No, and there's a lot of successful agents out there. So
yes, absolutely. So any closing words for our consumer or our real estate professionals alike?
Well, get your team together. Yeah. Work with the best coaches. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting spring market. I think it's going to be great for a lot of sellers, but I do know that a lot of buyers are going to be successful and really, really happy. So get the team together, know your numbers, know what your options are, have a plan A, plan B, maybe even a plan C.
Well, Danielle, and just to close us out, you've got that magic 8 ball on your desk.
We didn't bring the magic 8 ball today.
I did go in and I said, what is the market going to be doing this year? And it said, outlook looks good.
Oh, so, good.
Yeah, so we're gonna.
Okay, maybe
everything's gonna be okay.
Maybe next week we bring the magic 8 ball. Monica, you got to remind us to bring the magic 8 ball.
We are bringing in the magic 8 ball for a Smarter Way Home episode of what's going to happen in the market. And this way we can find out how true those magic 8 balls are. So for Danielle Boote, my name is Victor Bals. We will see you next time here on a Smarter Way Home.